What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I've got a new news video. It's weird, new news video. Anyway, we've got 5 new Fright Fur cards, which is really cool because we just got some Fright Fur reprints. Well, not just got them, but we have got them, which is pretty cool. Kind of explains that they were kind of coming in this direction, so it just makes more sense. And this is really exciting because not only do Fright Furs need support, but they also just became playable again. I'm not saying they're tier 1 or anything, or even tier 2, but they did become playable now that we're in Master Rule 5. They can function the way that they want to function now under the new rules. So because that, pairing with these new cards could give them a decent chance at doing some cool stuff. So let's take a look. All right. First up, we've got FLUFFAL Dolphin. This is a level 4 water fairy effect monster with 1600 attack, 1000 defense. You can only use his first and second effect once per turn each. First effect says you can target one toy vendor in your graveyard, set it to your field, and if you do, send one Edge Sabers or a FLUFFAL monster from your deck to the graveyard. And the second effect says if this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a fusion summon, you can shuffle one of your polymerization spells or fusion spells that is banished or in your graveyard back into the deck. Whew! Okay. So looking at this card, I think it's pretty nice. I think it's definitely not a starter card because like you're targeting a vendor in grave, you're shuffling a polymerization from grave back into the deck. So like I think it's like a solid card. It's definitely not a starter. This could maybe be like a follow-up card, maybe a card you play at 1 or 2, where like maybe in extensive combos you may be able to use this like later on in the combo, or like on separate turns, like later turns in the duel, you end up like just using this card, setting a toy vendor back to your field, then foolish burialing a Sabers or a FLUFFAL monster, and then you get to like recycle a polymerization and fusion spell, because sometimes you don't want to play too many copies of stuff like that in these decks because it can cause you to brick. But I think it's a good card. I think it's definitely pretty resource efficient, right? You just get a toy vendor back, you get the foolish these, which usually gets you a plus in grave and stuff, and then just recyclability. It's nice. I think it's a nice card. I don't think it's like crazy, but it's nice. It may be a nice tool for the deck. Next up, we have a card I'm actually pretty sauced about. This is Edge Scythe. This is a level 3 Dark Fiend effect monster with 1000 attack, 0 defense, and 2 hard once per turn effects. The first effect says, during your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can reveal this card in your hand as cost. Then fusion summon one Fright Fur fusion monster from the extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material, including this card in your hand. Second effect, if a Fright Fur fusion monster or monsters you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. Whoo! This card's so clean. I think this card, not only is it just like better in like grindier games, like in the mid game, being able to like do impactful stuff on your opponent's turn or dodge certain stuff, whatever it is, it gives the deck a going first option, which the deck really does not have great going first options. Usually going first options for Fluffals, as far as I've seen, usually just ends up being like just big chungussy boards. You just put a bunch of big monsters on the board and say, hopefully my opponent doesn't have enough removal capability in their deck to get rid of all of this. And if they do, you lose, and if they don't, you may have a chance at just winning in the battle phase on the following turn. But that's not great, right? So I think this may give us an option to do stuff on our opponent's turn to just like mess with their plays, dodge disruption, dodge removal, whatever it is. I think it's pretty cool. And then the protection effect's also very nice. I think that in general, that's just pretty solid. Just protecting any Fright Fur fusion from destruction once. Pretty good. It's literally Balinks. I love it. All right. Next up, we have a new fusion. We have Fright Fur Whale. I think this card's actually pretty clean in this deck. I'll put it there, just so we can see all the text. He is a level 9 Water Fiend fusion effect monster with 2600 attack, 2400 defense. He's a Chungus. We know what Fluffals do. His fusion materials are any Edge monster and any FLUFFAL monster. So nice and generic for the archetype. It means you can use Scythe, and they're going to synergize. You're going to see in a sec. If this card is fusion summoned, you can destroy 2 cards on the field, but it has to be 1 card from each side. And the second effect, once per turn, As a quick effect, you can target a fusion monster you control as cost, send a Frightful card from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, except for another Frightful Whale, and if you do, the targeted monster gains attack equal to half its own attack until the end of this turn. So it's actually just a buff, but it does also help send stuff. I don't think there's a ton, but I do think there are a handful of Frightful cards in the main deck. Don't quote me on that, but I think there's a couple that you can just send with this, so this can be a potential just Foolish Burial type thing, but because obviously if you send a fusion from extra deck to grave, unless it may float, I don't know if any of them float, but you won't be able to bring them back because they weren't correctly summoned in the first place, so there's like weird stuff there. But the main thing is like he's going to, as a quick effect, make any fusion monster gain half of its attack. So this guy would just put himself, you can target himself, and just make himself 3,900, which is huge. That's ginormous. This card outs Ultimate Falcon, if that gives you an idea. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, that's just like a bonus. I think the main effect is the first effect, though, because like the idea here, I think, is that you can use the Scythe to quick fuse on your opponent's turn into a whale. Whale would target your one opponent's card, and then potentially, if you have nothing else that's really a great target to destroy, he could target himself, and then because you have Scythe engraved, Scythe can actually banish itself to then protect the whale. So you get the disruption, but you actually don't lose anything because the Scythe ends up protecting the whale. Obviously, if you had another target that you didn't mind popping, you could totally do that. I think it's actually interesting because you could play like an artifact engine and potentially just like pop a Scythe, pop a Moral Attack, and then get that special them, and then either lock them on the extra deck or pop another card. That's actually pretty cool. But yeah, I really like this. This is a nice option. I mean, it's just a pop, a one card pop, but like combined with a beat stick that then could potentially have like destruction protection. Could be a problem for certain decks to out, for sure. I really like this. All right, moving on though, we've got Frightful Repair. This is a normal spell card. You can only use either this card's first or second effect once per turn, and only once per turn. So you got to pick one. You can't use both. First effect says target any Frightful fusion monster in your graveyard, return it to the extra deck. Then you can special summon a Fluffal or Edgent monster from your graveyard. So takes a little bit of setup, but I would say some of the like Fluffal archetype likes to use a Fluffal fusion and another card to fuse into a bigger, better Frightful fusion monster, and so like you end up with them engraved even on turn one as just part of your combo, and then you shuffle back and you get an extender. So it is just a monster reborn. It does take setup though. I think that's going to be the mark on this card, is that you do have to get a Frightful fusion into your graveyard. But also, we just looked at this. If you can just get to Whale wants to just send one from your extra deck to the grave as well. So even without even just making one fusion being Whale, you could then use this card immediately and get a reborn effect in place, which is pretty cool. And the second effect of this card is you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon a Fluffal or Edgent monster from your hand. So obviously you can't use both in the same turn because that would be pretty good. Get a monster reborn and then get an extra extender out of your hand. So you can only use one per turn, but the other one can come up in handy, like if you don't kill that turn, or if you need to make a comeback play later in the duel. This can help you get that extender out. That could be the difference. Who knows? But yeah, I think it's a nice card. I worry. I don't know if it'll be fast enough. That like the deck is more so worried about consistency, not follow-up plays. And this seems more like a follow-up play card. So I don't know. Maybe it is great. I'm just not as privy to the deck as I could be. So I definitely don't know if this card could be clutch or not. But yeah, it seems fine. And the last card we have here is a new trap called Frightful Vendor. It's a continuous trap card. This card becomes Toy Vendor while on the field or in the graveyard. That has a lot of synergy with the deck. Its second effect says once per turn you can discard a card to draw a card and reveal it. If it is an Edge Imp monster, you can destroy one card on the field. Otherwise, place one card from your hand on the top or bottom of the deck. Third effect, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Its attack becomes halved until the end of this turn. Okay, so a lot going on here. The first effect, being Toy Vendor on field and grave, gives multiple synergy aspects with the deck. I mean, we even see the new card, Dolphin, having synergy with like resetting a vendor card to your field, which is really nice. And then obviously we have like Fluffal Bear, and I believe Fluffal Wings is the other one that has really powerful synergy with like vendor cards. Just really nice. The second effect is probably my favorite effect of this card. It's just discard to draw a card, and then if you happen to draw an edge imp, you do also get to disrupt your opponent by just popping a card on the field. That's non-targeting, so that's actually pretty good in my opinion. Obviously, there's a lot of RNG there, and it won't happen most of the time. But you know, even just discard and draw every single turn, it's pretty good. A lot of decks have just graveyard synergy, so you're just like, let me just get this card I want in grave anyway into the grave, and I'll take a chance at drawing like a better card. Maybe you draw a hand trap, maybe you draw, you know what I mean, like other stuff that could be useful even on your opponent's turn, which is pretty cool. So then the third effect, oh, and then also like the drawback is pretty rough though. If you didn't draw the Edge Saber, you do have to place a card from your hand on the top or bottom of your deck. So it is almost like a -1 in that aspect. So it's overall it's not that great, but it does give you the opportunity to draw into something great. I don't know. It's weird. The third effect, if this card is sent to the graveyard, target a face-up monster opponent controls half its tag. That's fine. I actually don't think this card's that good overall. I think that second effect is like interesting, but I think overall like this card just is another toy vendor name, but it doesn't do anything really good enough to like make you want to be like, oh man, if that goes off, you're so set. So I don't know how I feel about this card. Again, I don't know the exact synergies that this deck has, so I don't know. Maybe this card specifically works with more stuff than I think it does in the archetype, and maybe it's better than I think. But that's for you guys to let me know for sure. If you know something here and there's a couple of like weird synergy things that I didn't really know because I don't play Fluffals, definitely let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on these overall as well. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, subscribe to the channel if you have not yet, and I'll see you guys in the next video with more news, more whatever, and more deck profiles. I don't know. I love you. Thank you. Peace.